Hi, and welcome to the Glean blogcast. Higher education is rapidly evolving, and both institutions and educators need to keep pace with ever-changing student needs and classroom dynamics. That's where we come in. Our mission is to make learning quicker and easier for everyone. In this series, you'll hear inspiring stories and practical tips from industry experts and frontline educators. Join us and uncover how to create learning environments where every student can thrive. Let's dive in.
My name is Anisha. I'm a senior marketing executive here at Glean, and I was a student that required extra note-taking support with my study skills during college because of my dyslexia, and that was actually when I first came across Glean, as it helped me to gain my college degree, and it's something that I feel super passionately about, empowering other students to also be able to reach their full potential. This is why we're here today. We're here for the student panel. Unfortunately, one of the students, Hikashi, was not able to join, but I'm very excited to say that we do have Anthony and Ben joining us here today. Thank you both for joining me on screen. It would be great before we start if we could have a little bit of an introduction from you both, perhaps starting with you, Anthony, about the institution that you're working at, what you're currently studying, and the state that you're in. That would be absolutely amazing if you could do that.
Yeah, sure thing. Thanks for having me on. My name is Anthony. This is my second semester of college at Utah Valley University in Utah. And I am currently studying digital cinema production. So yeah, there's a little bit of an intro about me.
Awesome. Thank you. Over to you, Ben.
Hi everyone. My name is Ben. I am a graduate student at Sacred Heart University in Connecticut, studying digital marketing, and this is my last trimester of college, actually. So I've been here for the past 5 years, so it's been a great experience. And yeah, I'm looking forward to meeting you all.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So, what we're going to do in this session over the next 40 minutes or so, what we're going to do is have an open discussion. We'll get people's questions in as well from the chat if there's anything that you would like to ask in the Q&A. But there's also some questions here, and we'll try to go through them, and we'll try to squeeze in as much as we can. So yeah, let's get into it. So the first question here, Ben, if we could stay with you, actually, what were some of the learning difficulties that you were facing before using Glean?
I think I said this earlier, and when we met earlier this month, but I remembered that beforehand I was using a different platform provided by our school, which was called Sonison. And the difficulty what I found with using that is you can't optimize your note performance in class so you can't optimize and tailor it to any specific types of details. So you weren't able to know what this is important, ideal for a quiz or a test coming up, or you could separate it based on a homework type of question. And what I found out from Glean is now you have that capability to separate those types of importance, so you can highlight whether the in-class discussion is on a review basis. You can even mark it important, and you can even use the heading feature to even add a title so you know where to go back. And the other thing is I wasn't able to incorporate presentations, the lecture with our old platform as well. So I found that was really nice to be able to download the PowerPoint from our university, or from the professor's class, and then use that during the class to follow along as well. So it's much easier to follow along with Glean.
Yeah, absolutely. And where we started when we were Sonison and where we're at now, there's just been such a massive improvement overall with the features, the accessibility, and we've come such a long way. So it's great to see that. And something personally as well, when I was studying, it was Sonison back then, but then I was able to also use Glean, and just to see that drastic change has been so good. How about for you, Anthony?
Yeah. I would say that this translates not only in my learning in school, but also my performance and work responsibilities. Because I remember just trying to complete certain tasks, whether I was taking notes for meetings and things like that. And afterwards, just trying to really organize those notes was difficult because I had to share that with a group of people, and they needed to be good, accurate notes. And it took a lot of time to try to proofread all those notes and make sure that I was actually capturing the essence of what the meeting was about. And I'd say that that was a challenge for me, just in every aspect of making sure that my notes matched what I actually like got out of the session or a meeting or a conversation. And when I started using Glean, I was able to just notice that huge difference right away, that the transcript that it keeps is really accurate. And that was really awesome to see, because I was able to just like really go into those notes and check them quickly. Like, okay, it's got everything here, and it's a lot easier to compile it and organize it. So I'd say that it really helped me there, because I was just struggling to feel like I was keeping up proficiently, just with the amount of time that it would take me to organize all that I got out of the class or of a meeting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's great that the transcript feature you found especially useful. It's something that we've been hearing a lot in terms of the feedback from students as well and faculty, about how accurate it is compared to the competitors as well. So yeah, that's great to hear how that's been of help. And maybe sticking with you, Anthony, if that's okay, how has Glean helped you to become a better learner? Is there any specific examples? I know you're talking about a bit around the work, but is there any other examples that you can provide?
Yeah. So again, like, it's just really helped me be more engaged in what I'm listening to, because before using Glean, I was so worried about getting my notes down, and that would take a lot of my focus, and trying to multitask was challenging. But with Glean, it's helped me be a better learner, just because I can kind of turn it on and then set it and forget it, and just really pay attention and listen. I don't have to be distracted trying to take a bunch of notes or really capture every word, because I know that Glean's got my back kind of doing that for me. And I can just take little notes here and there. And I love that it like keeps a timestamp as you take those notes down with the recording. So wherever you took those notes is exactly going to be in the transcript in that part of the recording. And you can jump right to it in the script. And so it's like, oh, this is when they were talking about this. And so that's been really great for review. So if I need to go back in because I want to make sure that I understood, or I just need to study something, I can go back into those like jumping points with those notes that I took, and it'll take me right to it. So that's helped me just go through a lot of information quickly. So that's helped me be a better learner, because I don't spend as much time worrying about so many things. I can kind of be more specific about what I really want to approach and what I want to study. It's helped me in a lot of ways, I'd say, but that's one of them for sure.
Awesome, thank you. How about for you, Ben?
I've definitely seen Glean as I've grown throughout my courses and classes, as well as growing with the platform as well. I've definitely found that it is essential to know where exactly, because not a lot of times will there be, well, obviously professors will record classes. It might be up to the student to get those recording as well, especially if it's, let's say, a quant class that you might have to take. It's definitely important to idealize where you want to go with and how you want to jot down your notes. And it's especially essential to note where those important key words are, especially for the class as well. I found that this is a new feature that was added recently. It's called Quiz Me, and it will basically generate some questions with your recording, so that a lot of times it will give you an idea just of what you're looking to study for your next upcoming test or exam, especially if it is mentioned. And I found this to be really resourceful because not only does it help me understand more of the concepts better in my learnings, but it also helps me better understand the the platform as well. Just making sure that this is a nice way to increase your learning and enhance your understanding of the coursework while taking notes at the same time, and especially highlight those aspects in your presentation as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great that you mentioned about QuizMe. Like, it's such an exciting feature that has been released, and along with Scribble as well, we're really seeing such a positive impact that it's having. I'm sneaking in a little bit of a bonus question actually here for you, Ben. Then, what would your kind of day-to-day look like? Let's say before class, during class, and after class. In terms of using Glean, what would that look like? Would you do any prep beforehand, or would you do it after the class has taken place?
That was an interesting point because I usually always review a couple of hours before my class starts because sometimes they're 3 hours long. And just to make sure that I have all the right notes going into the next class, and especially detailing the parts of the recording of where it is essential to know for next time, because sometimes I'll have a professor who will just ask a quiz and we'll do a review before the class starts just to make sure that everyone's on the same pace. So it's really essential during class. I also know when those important definitions are, to make sure that they're highlighted down, making sure that they are essential. I mean, a lot of times I'll do a second guess. I'll even have a notepad in front of me just to write down that and highlight. Like, I'll even put a star next to it just to make sure that it is covered. And then the third thing I'll do after the recording, I'll make sure is usually all my classes are in the evening time at night. So usually I'll go home and then I'll make sure that I open up the recording and get a brief gist of what the course is. And sometimes, even though it might be a couple hours long, it's still always great to kind of have that refresher, so that way you're going into the next week feeling much prepared. And obviously making notes throughout the week. I also find that just having a calendar, I also usually always put on my calendar to say, make sure to review those notes before class as well, so it will help me in both assets.
Yeah. How about for you, Anthony? I'd be interested to hear what your response would be to the same question, because with the type of course that you do, being in media productions, what would that look like in terms of Glean? What would you do would you use it beforehand, during class, or after?
I use it for all three. So I definitely want to go in beforehand to check out those notes and things just to kind of refresh real quick. Because some of the classes I take are really task intensive with shortcut keys and things, like if you're editing. And so there's a lot of specific information that was mentioned in class, and you're trying to learn a lot of things quickly across several different platforms. And it can feel overwhelming to try to remember everything, or to have to go and search it all again, to go Google search, like, what are these keyboard shortcuts, or, and just going into my notes, I can go to that class because I remember you can title it easily, and you can go in and you can jump to those notes and you can look over it. And during class, I can either use my computer or I can use my phone, which has been awesome that they also have a mobile app, because sometimes it's just really convenient to pull that out and be able to, like, if they're giving a presentation, the professor's writing stuff up on the board, you can just snap a photo with your phone through the Glean app, and it will throw that picture and clip it right into your notes. And so that's good that you can capture things that are happening in the class really easily that way. And it just, for me, like, that's great, because going back and trying to watch a class, like a video of something, you can't always control like the speed that you can rewatch that video or cover content, and there's not a transcript provided, so you have to like scroll all around just trying to find a specific place that you're wanting to review. But, with Glean, you're able to have that transcript there. And so I use it for that. And then after class, I definitely go in and use it to just get things done a lot quicker. Because if there's like an assignment that's due right after class, I've had several classes where they want you to, like, they give you a presentation on a different track in the industry in digital production, whether it's directing or it's editing or producing. And there's a lot of information that they go over, and they ask you to then provide, like, what are 5 things that you learned, and instead of like worrying about getting these things together, that's going to take me a lot of time before I have to go to my next class, I already have my notes and they're just there, and I can just get the assignment done super quickly. So that right there, I mean, I use it as much as I can, honestly. I'm using it all the time.
Yeah. And moving on to the next question, I think that's a great segue into the next question. I know you mentioned quite a few features, Anthony, about what you use in terms of transcript, taking the picture. But is there any specific features or tool that you found particularly helpful within that app?
I mean, I just love how versatile it is, because there's a lot of different ways to view the layout of your information. You can put things into collections. And so it's not just like a huge long list of recordings or transcripts. You can have things organized into groups. And so you can have it set to per class. I also love that you can, there's a task feature so that you can go in and just highlight text and make a task out of it. You can add a note to it. It's like, hey, you need to study this Friday, and it will set a task for you, and you can access those tasks really quickly. So that way you can kind of create a game plan for what you want to do with the information you recorded. That's been really nice to have.
Awesome. How about for you, Ben?
I would definitely echo what Anthony said, and I would also add on to that there's different types of views for what you want to, how you want to highlight. So if it's more, I would say the assignment is more, the class is more lecture based, then maybe the reading view is more, might be more sufficient, because then you kind of get that word for word, line by line type of view from what the professor presented in class, versus if you have the layout panel view with the presentation mode, that definitely helps. Sometimes there'll be portions where there's no notes set throughout the whole class, and sometimes you find we have some in-class work assignments. It also helps to reiterate what points were brought up during the discussion, especially even asking a certain professor or teacher in class a question. It always helps to understand where that question is and what the steps are to take to get to progress throughout that idea of a question, whether, because sometimes I'll be working on a final project and even if I don't ask a question, I don't understand where that idea come from. And with the recording in progress with the Glean app, that helps make it much easier to go back to that certain point and idealize what was said throughout that class, so it does not go unnoticed or I just forget it right after, because sometimes we have some short-term memory, or some of us might be more long-term memory types of learners, and that helps in that aspect.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that. And if we could stay with you, Ben, as well, is there any other apps that you use, or study apps, tools in the past? I know you mentioned Sonison. Was there any others that you use, been given access to, that you use, and if so, how does Glean compare?
I've used an app called Quizlet for the majority of my schooling, and I found that in comparison to Glean, it helps with the understanding. Well, now the new feature, obviously the Quiz Me feature, helps with generating quiz responses, but it also helps to understand long form versus short form types of questions, because sometimes if you're reading based off a definition, then whatever the definition that might have been presented during the lecture may already be in Glean. And with Quizlet, you can also reiterate that to say, this is mostly similar, if not the same, as to what was said in class. So I found that to be really helpful in terms of the comparison from Quizlet to Glean as a type of learning app. And then I would say the biggest difference is not being able to have that specific recording. So a lot of times there's a lot of different features that will be presented. So sometimes you might be matching up a definition to an answer, whereas with you might have just multiple choice, and Quizlet also has multiple choice options, but with I would say there's more options based on the types of ideas that you're looking to bring out. Sometimes I feel like if it's more definition based of a class, it will help to understand more. You can get more ideas of what different types of words are presented, what types of keywords, especially throughout the presentation as well. So bringing that, I would say that's the biggest difference maker in terms of how I would compare these two learning apps, but they're both beneficial. Just that one is more kind of quiz based on like outside learning. One is more based on like the inside learning aspect, where you're engaging directly with the professor as well as in the class, and I think in real time as well.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned about Quizlet. Do you find that now with the new Quiz Me feature, just having that so much, it's more accessible, isn't it? With your recordings, everything all in one platform. Have you found that aspect helps, having the recording, the transcript, then the quiz feature in there?
I would definitely say it is helpful to have everything in one place, everything at your fingertips, because it helps to have everything in the same place. It really becomes more organized and more collaborative in that sense, because not only does it help you increase your learnings as well, but it also helps to know where everything is so that you can easily access it. Otherwise, in the past, was one of the biggest challenges, one of the biggest barriers that I've had in terms of accessibility. I think bringing more accessibility to these types of platforms, including Glean, audio and transcript side by side, they really help make the process much more easier, help shape your learning, and that is really, and that's really been a big asset. And I've also found that having a different highlights scrolling through down onwards. So sometimes you're playing a different section, and whereas in contrast to other learning apps, you're not able to do that in that sense, and everything is more organized in that sense. It's like all on one screen, versus you have to maybe go shift some different pages to access those types of views. So like one page versus multiple pages.
Peter, thank you. How about for you, Anthony?
Yeah, I would just go along with that. That it's been awesome as a tool for organization, and just compiling things together. I've tried to compile things with other apps. I've used Otter as a transcriber, and it would just throw everything onto a big page after it's transcribed, and the audio was not it didn't do very well at capturing what the meeting was actually about. And I've just tried using so many different things to try to get the results I was hoping for. I've just used my phone as a recorder, like just turn on the microphone and try to go back and listen to hours of meetings that way. And that's not as effective as Glean for sure. So I was also using Quizlet and trying to come up with quiz cards, flashcards, using information from class, from notes. And that was a time-consuming process, because I was trying to think of what would help me learn this information well. But yeah, like with the Quiz Me option, that's just automatic in Glean is nice because it just takes your notes and it can give you that information in a study format. So that's been nice as well. So yeah, it's just nice that it's very reliable as a tool because it is all in one place, and I'm not having to jump between different programs.
Yeah, I think it's similar to Ben, and having that all in one platform in one place is so much easier. And I kind of laughed to myself when you were talking about having the audio recordings on your phone. It's something that I personally tried doing during my studies, and I'd have recordings in them, voice memos. Did I ever go back to listen to them? Absolutely not. It just ended up wasting storage on my phone. And interesting that you were talking about using Otter for was that for like more? Was it problems around the transcript that you found that it?
Yeah, the transcript just really wasn't as reliable for sure. Yeah, I was using that in Zoom meetings just because it's something that was built in to Zoom as a plugin. And so I would go searching for different things, hoping that it was good enough. And I tried several different ones, and I was like, oh, this one should be good. It's got good ratings. But then you use it and you're like, I can't use these notes. I can't, like, it's still going to take me a lot of time to clarify these notes. And I haven't had that issue with Glean.
Yeah. And even what I've heard from students is when you are going back to look over the recordings, or you want something clarifying, the fact that you can click on it and it takes it to that slide, those parts of your note, that part of the transcript, it's all there in one place, and you've got the audio as well. It makes it so much easier to go back and listen to. Is that something that you've also found helpful?
Yeah, and it's just very user friendly. So it doesn't take a lot of time to navigate, to figure out how to use its different functions, because it's just very easy to get along with because the way that the format is laid out, it's not too cluttered. There's not all these distractions in there. It is just pretty straightforward, and I really like the simplicity in that.
Thank you. Awesome. So, have you noticed any improvements in your academic performance since using Glean? Anthony, I'll stick with you for this. If so, what kind of improvements have you seen?
Yeah, I would say that it's helped me definitely as far as being able to move from one assignment to the next a lot quicker. Because if I'm trying to finish up a general class, because this is my second semester of college, and there's a lot of classes that you're just trying to get the busy work done, and it's been very helpful in improving my time management, because if I have to do an essay on something, I'm not spending hours trying to really think of how to approach the specifics of the assignment, and meeting the rubric or the criteria demands, because I know that the notes that I have from the study material, from any videos that I've watched in the course material, I just turn on the recording app. Even if it's just like a video that they want me to watch, I just turn on the recording component of Glean, and then I can jump back to it. And it's like, okay, I've got my study materials here on hand, just right here, that I can easily access. And that's helping me be a lot more proficient with my time, because I'm able to just, I feel like, get a lot more done, cover a lot more ground, because I have access to that information quickly. Instead of, if I didn't have those tools, I would be trying to write out my own notes, trying to make sure that my notes make sense. And then I'd be fairly disappointed that my notes weren't really covering the wide scope of the information I needed. And I would constantly be going back to the assignment requirements, making sure that I'm like lined up to complete it correctly. I feel like Glean helps me cut corners in a very proficient way.
Yeah, it's what we always strive to. Our kind of ethos is like, we don't want to be able to replace that learning environment, and we want to help to scaffold the learning process, and to help people with the building blocks that they need to enable the academic success. How about for you, Ben? What are the improvements? Have you seen any improvements since using Glean?
Yeah, I found that I've had to do a lot less writing than I normally think I'm doing, because sometimes I'm writing down constantly a lot of what might, and in this sense, may not even be as important as what you're jotting down with Glean, with all the features that you are that you have at your fingertips. So having that tool at your hand just makes it much more simplistic, just to leverage how much you're using the platform, how much you're using the software, and how much you're actually note taking. You might just now jot down a few bullet points now, versus having that, versus trying to write down every single thing and every single key detail. And it's improved my learning in a huge way now that it is more kind of auditory, just to get understanding. So now, I know a lot of us might have different learning styles. For example, I'm an auditory type of learner, so learning by hearing is definitely made my improving much more understanding, and being able to go back persistently, especially before and after class, having that understanding much more engraved in my brain. So it's not just like, oh, what was that one key detail that was mentioned? It really helps with that significant learning process, and especially when academic performance, it helps much more, especially on when it comes to learning for your tests and quizzes. It makes it much more ideal, well, from my perspective, idealistic, to be able to understand and get more of this grasp and understand. Even doesn't even matter if it's online or in-person quiz, it still kind of helps in that same way, because now with this type of learning, it makes them so much more. There's a better feel for my learning, just to, besides just taking notes and trying to highlight them, because before I would take notes and highlight every single type of important detail, and sometimes it wouldn't even be organized, because it would all be cluttered. There would be so much notes that would be cluttered, because sometimes I don't even think to space out my notes just by writing them down on a piece of paper. Versus with Glean now, there has been significant improvements with how I'm learning, the style I'm learning, and the structure of my learning as well. It makes it so much more compact, much more easier to understand.
Awesome. And how do you find that has helped to improve your confidence in class, Ben?
And yeah, I'm able to ask more questions and engage in more discussions much more easier, especially because a lot of times we're doing group works in pretty much every single one of my class. So it becomes more essential, especially for group assignments, just to be able to say, this is what I remember, and this is how I would apply it. And a lot of times it might be, what do you call it? Case by case basis on a specific case study, and applying those learnings throughout the course from the perspective that you got, and especially with the in-class examples, it helps increase your ability to say that this is what I remember about the in-class learnings, and this is how I think this could be applied to this certain case, or this is how it can be applied to this type of problem that needs to be solved for the next aspect. And also for some classes that's much more project based and tool based, it helps improve with those understandings with when you're able to follow along, not just from using the tool, but also when you're using this step-by-step process. It helps you, and some tools might be more visual than others, but you kind of get that process, like step 1, step 2, step 3, It improves that confidence to kind of say this is what step I need to take first, and this is a step I need to continue to take to get to the the very last measure. So it helps with improving that type of understanding and being able to interact more with your classmates and peers.
How about for you, Anthony?
Yeah, I would say it's helped a lot, because it kind of like, again, it gives me a game plan for how I want to get the most out of what I'm trying to learn, because I can get scatterbrained, or put a lot of pressure on myself when trying to learn something. And even when I go and ask a professor a question, I'm trying to listen to the answer, but something else can sneak in my brain as I'm listening. And then I'm worried that I didn't really quite understand the answer. And so that can cause a little bit of a panic. There's just a lot of academic stress that comes. And as like, this is only my second semester of college. And so I'm still gaining that experience with trying to keep up with all the demands. And so it's really improved my confidence when it comes to that, because it's helped take a lot of the stress off, because I know that I can go into the notes and I can just kind of teach myself what I really need to teach myself in the way that I like to teach myself, using those notes as a resource. Because it's basically like, if there is anything that I didn't quite get or that I really feel like I need to review, it's almost as if the professor is still right there and I can just go right back to what they said, and I don't have to worry that I'm missing information. I can kind of go at my own pace and put together things in a way that are going to help me advance. And so I think that that's just been awesome, because Glean's helped me be able to have more of that confidence in feeling like, okay, I'm keeping up with my academic learning a lot better, just because I know that I'm going to be able to look at this in a way that's going to make sense to me, rather than just feeling really stressed out that, like again, if I'm taking notes by hand, I sometimes put so much stress on myself to get everything, that my handwriting doesn't look good. And you hardly ever use your own notes. Like you just don't get much out of it, because they're very bulleted, and you're trying to listen more. And that's been a struggle, of trying to listen and engage in the conversation in class, and listen to your own thoughts of like, how am I understanding the information? And so I haven't had to struggle with that like at all anymore, because just been able to really just tune in, turn on the recorder, and know that if I'm going to have anything that I need to question, I'm going to go back in and look at that. And then I can reach out to the professor if I require more information.
Yeah. Thank you both for sharing your journeys. And from my perspective, from someone who's dyslexic, and just hearing that, I really resonate with that. For me, worrying about my spelling is something that I face on a daily basis. And when before using Glean, I found myself in lectures where I was trying so hard to get every single point down of a presentation, that I was so fixated on my spelling. Am I spelling it right? Along the fact that having that in the background, but then you're able to go back and listen to the recording where the transcript is there in front of you, is something that I personally found super beneficial. So thank you both for sharing. And finally, just to end on, Anthony, if we can stay with you, what advice would you give to people, perhaps if they're considering different study options, maybe they're aware of Glean for their students, what advice would you give?
I would say keep it simple. And I think Glean does that, honestly, because you can spend a lot of time trying to compare to different tools, looking out there for what's going to work for you. But I think that if you just give Glean a shot, you're going to find very quickly that it kind of gives you everything that you need to get going quickly. And so I would just hand that advice over. If you're considering looking at different things, I don't think you really have to go searching that far, because this really does offer a lot of the user-friendly options that you're going to need. that you're going to want out of a study tool. And so it's been something for me that's been exciting enough that I've shared it with like other family members, my sister who's in college and has a learning disability. And I feel like, hey, does your school offer Glean? And she hadn't heard of it. And I started showing her all the features, and I could tell that there's something good here with Glean, just because when she saw the features and she's like, wow, that's awesome. That would be nice to have. And so I just really think that they've been very thoughtful in putting together a tools and service that just offer convenience. And so I just think, like, why stress yourself out trying to make sure you have the best thing when you can just try this out and see if it meets or hits all the spots that you need. Because you can use this and you can, like, you can take things from this and easily use it as a part of your process and other things. Like if you use ChatGPT or AI or whatever, which I do a lot, I'm able to just grab what I need out of Glean and then use it back and forth with that. And so it's like but I just know that Glean is an awesome tool because of everything that it offers you just right up front. So my advice is to just try to keep it simple.
Awesome. Thanks. How about for you, Ben?
Yes, a lot of times less is definitely more. And I feel like that goes without saying from using Glean. I would say get used to once you do get access to the platform, get used to it as quick as possible and start using it for every single class, whether that be on a block class on a week-by-week basis, or if you have persisting classes throughout the week that might be more short-ended, because you'll find that once you do have those recordings at your fingertips, that you'll be able to go back and say, yes, I'm feeling more confident in my learning styles, and I'm feeling more of a growth mindset in terms of how I'm going about interacting with my peers, and especially interacting on more of an academic basis. And definitely make sure that you're also interacting with other people, and definitely sharing, I would say, spread the word out to friends, family members as well. I think that's definitely a great way to spread awareness in this platform, and definitely considering that a lot of times the culture of how we study might be changing now with, let's say, AI at our fingertips. And now I think with Glean, it's really easier to kind of have a nice base platform for incorporating learnings, incorporating quiz features, and really idealizing the structure of how each one of your classes is laid out. And it does really help with the learning process and continuing to move forward, and definitely continue to use this, especially throughout, definitely, much higher, and especially if it's more of a lecture base, like there's much more heavy emphasis on a lecture base. It's definitely something that you definitely want to look out for, because now times you're going to memorize 3 hours of speech. Sometimes it definitely helps to condense that information and pick out all the right points, and maybe having to alleviate some of those struggles that you might have had in the past. So in terms of considering different study options and tools for students, this is definitely definitely some my takeaways, especially some of the takeaways I think we can use going forward, and to just become more equipped with these types of learning platforms as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, both. I'm just going to launch one final poll here, and it's a great segue onto this. If you do have, the question is, do you have budget set aside for some assistive tech? If you'd like to learn more about Glean, please do answer that poll. Awesome. Well, I've just seen the time and we've gone slightly over, but we have got one question that has come through. I believe is for Anthony, coming in from Anne. What are you using to take pictures of the board? Is this your phone, I'm assuming?
Yeah, yep, it's the phone. So you can just go straight into the app, and from the app, there's an option in there that you can actually just snap a photo. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Yeah, it's pretty convenient. It's pretty easy to get to. Just right there at the bottom, there's a picture, a camera icon. You just click that, and it opens up your camera, and you just take a picture, and then it adds it immediately right into your notes.
Yeah, awesome. I don't think we've got any other questions coming in. So we'll just move on to the last slide here. It's just telling you about our next session that we've got coming up. I'll pop the link in the chat. It's all about emerging trends in 2024 student accessibility services, which is with Robert Lee Beach, who is assistive technology specialist and at the Student Accessibility and Support Services Department of Kansas City, Kansas Community College. And Robert will be on the session live, sharing his insights into the emerging trends transforming student accessibility support, and we'll have time for a Q&A session at the end, as always. You can click the link that's in the chat to find out more information. But as we've gone over slightly, I'll head over to the last slide and just say thank you all so much for joining us. Thank you to Anthony and Ben also for joining us. Really appreciate it. And we hope to see you on a Glean webinar very soon.
Thanks for listening to the Glean blogcast. Turn on your notifications and follow us on socials to be the first to know about the next instalment. See you next time.